Editor for the Beaver County Times and Beaver County Radio's Eddie Crow. Notes on Entertainment is your source for the information on coming shows and music performances throughout the area. Scott will also give a preview of his Sunday column and weekly Get Out video. So make sure to mark your calendars to tune in this and every Thursday at 11:30 a.m. for notes on local entertainment right here on 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and BeaverCountyRadio.com. You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Welcome to The Entrepreneur Life with attorney and author Rocco Cozza, along with realtor and podcaster Eric McKenna. Content and sponsorship are being provided by Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna. Now let's join our show host for today's program on Beaver County Radio.
And welcome to The Entrepreneur Life. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, and Mr. Matt Durzik with you every Saturday, which is today, right? This is Saturday.
This is Saturday.
Saturday morning, 10:30 to 12:30 on the blowtorch of Beaver County, Beaver County Radio, all the good stations, WBVP, WMBA, and all that good stuff. Matt, how are you, sir?
Good. You might need this.
Yeah, I do. See, they have to give me a cheat sheet around here because I used to be able to memorize the call letters and all that stuff, but there's...
But you left for a little bit, then there became more.
It's a little more complex now, Matt. You have to admit.
It's a long list, man.
It's a long list.
Very long list.
I mean, look at 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and 95.7 and 99.3 FM. Always presented by St. Barnabas and streaming to you live on BeaverCountyRadio.com.
Sounds like a very seductive voice today.
I'm
not sure what's happening right now.
I don't know.
Sure
where
we're going with this show.
I don't know about that.
I didn't think
it was suspect, Matt.
It wasn't meant to be.
A little bit suspect.
It wasn't meant to be seductive. It was just
well, one man's seductive is another man's suspect.
In 2022, there's no doubt about that
Also
one,
true.
for sure. Gentlemen, we had a good time talking about communication last night. So last week, and Rocco and I, we do actually plan out these shows. And we looked at each other by Tuesday based upon feedback and said, you know what? We probably should take the plans for this show, push it back a week or two, and further talk about communication based upon some of the feedback we received. That was by Tuesday.
Yeah, unpack it some more.
We had a little more to come in during the week. So we're going to continue to talk on communication.
Yeah.
And if you're going into the entrepreneur life, the way you've communicated in your business world prior is probably going to be a little different than the way you're going to need to communicate. So we're going to talk about the ways we communicate and go a little more in depth on, I don't know, I hate to say do's and don'ts because that would be just our rules. Everybody has to find their own way.
Tips and tactics. Let's go with that.
Tips and tactics. See, that's why he's the attorney.
That's why I'm here.
That's why he's the attorney.
Give you the words you're
We're going to
looking
give you
for.
some tips and tactics on effective communication on various mediums today.
Yes. Yep.
Sound good to you?
That's
But
perfect.
before we do that, we're going to go, of course, to Matt Durzik. Matt is the host from 6:30 to 9, Monday through Friday here on Beaver County Radio of AM Beaver County. And Matt, how many years now? 5? That's
5 going on 6.
5 going on 6 as the host of that particular program.
As the host of AM Beaver County, yes.
Much longer on the station itself.
Closer to 10.
Wow. What is the pulse of Beaver County?
The pulse is sort of, gearing towards summertime and sort of ups and downs about it. Yesterday we were talking about Darlington Days, which is happening today. And we were talking about some of the upcoming shows taking place in Lincoln Park. But on the flip side of that, there's also the one pool that's still closed because they can't find enough lifeguards.
Wait, what?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, they can't.
That used to
So
be
I
a
guess
premium
everybody's
job
having
when I was
problems.
a young
Right.
person. That was a premium job.
Right. I mean,
You would
how?
beg for jobs like that.
Yeah, well, I guess that's not the case today, or at least for one particular pool.
Wow. What
So
is
is the
happening
pool
in
being
this
shut
world?
down because of it?
For the time being. Once they get enough lifeguards, they'll open up shop.
Is it because they're just not getting enough people to apply for the jobs, or people aren't qualified to be lifeguards?
Yes.
Okay. I get it. Listen, I experience it in my business trying to find employees. I get it.
You experience answers like that in your business.
Also true.
And you
Also
give
true.
answers like that in your
Yes.
business.
To all of that.
Yeah, it's a mix of they can't find anybody who's trained, and then they're competing with other pools around the area, and yeah, it's rough. it's rough. And
what a premium job.
Is there like a lifeguard school you go? Like, how do you get?
Yeah, it's
I was
probably
never a
one-
lifeguard.
It's probably one afternoon of training.
That's what I mean. Like, what qualifies you to be a lifeguard?
We used to have to go dive in the deep end of a pool, like 10 feet or more, and then retrieve a rubber-coated brick from the bottom and bring it up to the top and do it with, if you could do that.
Your lifeguard.
Yeah, I was kind of like the test back then.
I mean,
it wasn't
yeah.
CPR or anything. It was, were you able to dive down 10 or 12 feet in a pool? And believe me, if anybody out there wants to share a similar story, because I'm sure we have listeners that are the same age demographic as me. Do you remember that test in the school? There was a brick coated in rubber. They drop it in the pool, would sink to the bottom, and you had to dive down, grab the brick, and then bring it back up. That was kind of like the test.
And they're like, looks like you can save people. Let's give him the job.
Yeah,
Right.
the brick
I
test.
feel like that does not translate into being able to save a person's life.
no, which is probably why the training's a little different these days.
I can get them to the top, but I don't know what to do with them once I get them up
Right.
here.
As it turns out, people are not plastic bricks.
Right.
No, it's rubber. It's a real brick. No. A real cement. You don't get it. It's a cement brick, a masonry brick,
I get it, but a
covered
brick,
in rubber,
sure.
dropped in a pool.
So like a brick, like a
Not a concrete block, a brick. So it's
okay,
only like
so it's
maybe
like a couple pounds.
like that about.
Okay, so a couple pounds. So
10 pounds?
Okay, 10 pounds. So unless you're saving babies, I mean, adults weigh more than that. I feel like. So I'm just trying to figure out
Good point.
how that trans. But I guess that was back.
Listen,
in the day.
man,
That was
it's
back
a
in the
long
day.
time ago.
Before my
Things
time.
we didn't wear seatbelts back then.
Before my
and,
time, man.
we didn't put helmets on. We rode our bike outside. A lot of things were different back
You used to be able to smoke in the stadiums.
then.
Yeah.
We used to smoke on the side of the school. What are you talking about? Anyways, these are crazy.
Bring it back. Let's bring it back on task.
How do I possibly bring that one back?
I
From
don't
smoking on the side of the school to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Communication.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely.
we're talking about today. So when
Yeah.
the principal came out and yelled at you, that was one form of communication.
Yeah.
Not recommended.
No, no, it's not recommended to yell at people.
And we always gave excuses. Also not recommended.
Yeah, we had a discussion about excuses on the way down.
Yes, we did. So let's talk about written communication first, and then we'll get into verbal communication.
Yeah. But
And
let's also talk about something I brought up on the way down that I think we need to talk about before you get to communication.
Yes, Rocco and I were, believe it or not, we do planning. See, we actually plan content. Matt doesn't believe it, but we actually do.
Yeah.
And we do it sober, always. So I was extrapolating with Rocco and telling him, hey, this is my idea for the show. Here's the order I want to go, blah, 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 blah. And he said, hey, all that's good, and we'll get to that, but you're missing out. You're missing something very important that kind of needs to be put in the front. And I said, okay. And I said, we're going to talk about written communication and how your written words, both in email, text, and through social media, your public posts and all that, can be a reflection, positive or negatively, for not all people, but for most folks in business. It needs to, I would suggest that it needs to be a good reflection of you. And you said again, before you get to all of that, here's what needs to be at the front of the conversation.
Yes.
And that is,
You need to understand your frame of mind you're in before you communicate. Because I think people don't look at that, right? You have to you have to be very aware of the frame of mind that you are in when you're communicating, right? If you're in an agitated state or
that's all the time.
hungry, even hungry, like
That's all the time,
like
too.
I know me, like people will say I'm hangry because I'm just agitated if I'm hungry. That's probably not the best time for me to try and write something like a written form of communication. Doesn't make sense. So I think before you get to actually the way in which we communicate and the different modalities of doing it, we need to understand what is your frame of mind when you're going into that communication, because that can impact drastically the end result of that communication.
And that would be applicable for verbal and written conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, think about when you're agitated, right? And you go to write that nasty email, right?
Or social media
right?
post.
They tell you should like put it in a drawer, like don't send it. Give yourself 24 hours. There's a reason for that, because typically, if you're in that agitated state of mind, you're not perceiving information the same way you would when you're calm and stress free. So if I'm mad or angry and I start writing a response to something, one, I'm going to miss information. Two, my perception of the situation is distorted. So I can write it and sure get the emotion out, get the words out, take a step back, come back to it when I'm in a different frame of mind, and see if I would still send it. 99% of the time, I will rewrite the whole thing. That's why your frame of mind is so important.
Matt?
I agree. I agree with that because, I mean, I've been in positions like that very recently where I was in a mood and the mood was definitely altering the level of, words that I was putting out in an email.
Were you all up in your feelings?
A little bit, to put it mildly, a little bit.
See, I'm hip.
Yeah.
I know these terms. I know these terms.
But the reality is that, and I think the key too is, and Rocco said, you have to understand your frame of mind. It's also a matter of how do you want the other person to see it?
Good point.
And the reality is that sometimes you may just say, okay, I'm going to leave that in there and let them interpret it and see how it goes. You sort of roll the dice. But in a lot of cases, especially when you're sort of in the spotlight, you don't have the liberty to do that whatsoever.
No, that's a really good point, I think.
Excellent point.
Because there are, so to your point where you said, I'm just going to leave it in there and let them interpret it, I take the position, well, that if I'm going to do that, that's a conversation to probably have verbally or over the phone. Because there's too much in email and text that can be left to interpretation.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think can distort the entire intent of a conversation.
Yes.
But that may be the strategy too. You may say, well, yeah, I want them to marinate this a little bit.
Yeah.
And see what they come back. 'Cause it may be something that I want to see how they react.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is that sometimes a lot of people will do that just out of proxy and not realize that they may send, signals or messages that may be like, I won't mention their name, but there is someone I know who, nice person, nice guy, never seemed to have any issues. But anytime I text him something or he sends a message back, he'll like put an ellipsis at the end of it. And I'm thinking no, don't do that. No, you're making it mysterious. Don't leave me hanging like that.
Right. Why do you think he's doing that? Like, what is his intention?
I don't know because I know him and he doesn't seem like that kind of guy. It doesn't seem like he's hiding anything. It's just
maybe he doesn't understand the effect of the emoji.
Exactly. Well, it's not even an emoji; it's an ellipsis.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's just sort of it has that feeling of to be continued. It's just like continue what?
So I will use that. I will tell you that I will use that in a text message, and to me that is me symbolizing. Think about what I just said. That is my signal. Let that marinate and come back to me. And that's when I use it. Now I don't know why everybody else uses it, but I think to your point, like that is what are you trying to do there?
Yeah, I mean, there's moments where you have signals, but then there's moments where it feels like you're holding one of those stop slow signs in the middle of an open field. It's like, what is your point?
That's a good point, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was just a good visual. I was like, yeah, we'll run with that.
The ellipsis is definitely one of those kind of coming to written communication, right? Those are some of those things that you can put in a written communication that can be interpreted so many ways. Yeah, so many ways, and that's why the way you write certain things is absolutely critical. If you're trying to get a certain point across, you really need to be thoughtful in how you write.
So let me take a little right turn, and we'll swing back around here. I want to do this. Okay. So let's talk about what is traditionally considered, and we can't obviously talk about it blatantly, but let's talk about the use of it, and that's profanity in communication, in business.
Sure.
In business. And so a lot's changed in 30, 40 years, and I can only speak of my existence on this earth.
Right.
So 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and 40 years ago back, it really would be almost unheard of in a business context to receive an email with really even the H word or anything even edging on profanity. It was almost unbelievable. Like, it just isn't going to happen.
Right.
No one's going to write that, text that out, and put it in a business communication.
Yeah.
And in the rare event that you saw it, the gravity of those words were heavy. It was, that's made you stand up and take notice. I think that was positive. I think that, Roan, again, quoting Jim Rohn, right? That one time the father is so angry for a good reason at a child that he loses it and says a profane word when he never says that, the impact is successful to the children. They get that this is a serious moment.
Right.
If the profanity is wasted in regular conversation, you basically lose the power of the word. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I think we've done that as a society right now. I receive a lot of email conversations with a lot of profanity. I'm guilty once in a while, usually in a comical way, of using profanity in an email in a business context. Believe it or not, I do it.
Okay.
But what's your thoughts, both of you, on where we are today with profanity, acceptable uses of profanity? Rocco, a little caveat here. Rocco and I have had many podcasts and conversations about authenticity and us reflecting to the world exactly who we are. We usually don't run from any of that.
Right.
But there is a level of decorum, too, we also use in our business life.
Sure.
And how that blends into our personal life can be sometimes a tricky maneuver. I'm dying to hear Matt's viewpoint on it from a different demographic.
Absolutely.
But for both of you, the question will be, where do you think we stand today in 2022 in regards to profanity, and does it have any decorum attached to it anymore in written communication?
I think it would depend on the source. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that when it comes to, and this is why written communication is so important, because a lot of times when it comes from a certain source, we know that source from verbal face-to-face interactions. So basically, and it's amazing that the human mind can do this, but basically it'll take what is written in that text and, sort of interpret it in the voice and timbre of whoever sent it. And so that's why I honestly don't think it's as heavy anymore, at least on a professional level, and I don't think it ever really will be, unless, there's just, that level of acceptance throughout the entire company or business. Personally, obviously, it's a different thing because a lot of times you just, your friends, you talk to them and everything. The only slight issue would be, again, sort of that liberty that comes with one and trying to, rein it in or imply it to the other. And that's usually why I think a lot of people just don't go that route, unless they feel truly, safe in texting something that has words like that in there. They're probably not going to do it. And I may just be speaking from my experience, but I think ultimately a lot of people will avoid that either because they feel that it's not necessary, or if they want to use, like you said, Eric, the weight of the words, they'll, use them in a way that's more weighty when it's in person in verbal communication.
Okay, so
I'm staring at you, big boy.
So I have a couple of viewpoints on this. So one, the way I communicate, right? The way I write and speak are a little bit different. Right? I typically very rarely, if ever, use profanity in written communication. In a text message, I may,
You did it this morning.
Yeah. That's,
and it was funny.
Yeah, okay, probably did. But that's not. I mean, business context, right?
Yeah,
so email, I'll never put it in the email.
Right.
Now, how I speak, I'm Italian. Like, I use profanity to punctuate statements. but that's me. But that's me. Like, I know I use it in a certain context. I know how I speak. People know that.
Right.
It can add color to a conversation. Now, I also
good word.
I listen to other people, and I can know if profanity is something that matters or not. Meaning, if this is a person that very rarely uses profanity and then all of a sudden does, there's a point being made right there.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that I need to pay attention to. That profane word came out in a way in conjunction with other words that means I should take notice of that point and do something about it.
Right.
Same thing in written form. Now, if it's someone that I know is like me, it's just a conversation.
Right.
So I think you got to it's very situational, right? You have to understand the person to whom you're speaking. You have to understand the person to whom you're communicating, how they communicate, to understand, does profanity have the same impact? Do I think there's a place for it in the business world? Yeah, of course. I mean, it's how humans communicate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we're never going to eliminate it. It's not going to be, it's not, and I think people use it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you have to understand the other person, I think, to really understand the weight of profanity or not.
Yeah, and I think we're all capable of doing that effectively. Case in point,
Sure.
When you're a kid and you're going, you're in school and you're going to do a presentation in front of the class.
Mhm.
You know when to shut it off. You learn that early, when to shut it off and then when to use it. You mess up once in a while, but generally speaking, when the eyes are all on you and it matters, whatever is in your world at that time, you know how to shut off and curb it.
Yeah.
We just don't do it, I think, enough in business, and we'll talk about that in your second
Yeah.
break. This is the Entrepreneur Life. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Durzik. We will be right back.
For 3 decades, Western Pennsylvania's #1 car cruise event of the season has happened in Beaver Falls. This year, the Beaver Falls Car Cruise is happening Saturday, June 11th. This year's cruise includes a special opening ceremony and parade starting at 11 honoring veterans. The program includes an antique war-era airplane flying over 7th Avenue in Beaver Falls by Air Heritage. Enjoy dozens of food vendors, oldies DJs, a live Beaver County radio broadcast, and the biggest, longest cruise lane anywhere. The event is coordinated by the Beaver Falls Car Cruise Committee and sponsored by AK Nahas, API, Lil Joe's, Kitchen City, Aquatic Gardens, Athens Family Restaurant, Beaver County Fruit and Garden Center, Bryant's Towing and Hauling, and Chelsea Party Center, among others. Follow the Beaver Falls Car Cruise on Facebook or follow the crowd to the 31st Annual Beaver Falls Car Cruise from 11 to 7 on June 11th in Beaver Falls.
Farming is dangerous. There's dangers all around us. We work around it and we live around it every day. And we just become desensitized to what's around us.
We go through safety training and, we try and do these things to make sure accidents don't happen, but you just never know.
There are so many farmers that I think take for granted all of the underground utilities that are there.
You don't want to hit a gas pipe because that's your life. The other part of it is if you hit certain things, you're liable for it.
I mean, we kind of know what's out here, but all at the same time, you just always call.
Farm Safe 811 starts with you. Whether you're installing drain tile or doing any sort of digging, always call 811 and wait for any underground lines to be marked and have the depth confirmed. That's farming with care. But if a line does get damaged, go somewhere safe and call 911.
Always keep safety in the back of your mind. Just stay humble.
For more information, go to farmsafe811.org.
St. Barnabas thanks you for listening to Beaver County Radio.
Profanity. What a subject for a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And the weight or the lack of profanity, the weight of,
Right.
So where did we leave this off?
We were
because we carried the conversation at a break, and I'm going to make sure that we don't we seamlessly go right back to it. You were saying that it's important to have that skill, which you
got to know
have
the
the possession.
context in the situation.
Correct, but you also know when and where to use it.
Correct.
And I made the statement that when you're younger, we're taught appropriate behavior for the setting.
Yep.
And then areas where you have some latitude. And those are the things you learned as a child.
Yeah.
But again, like other things we learned as a child moving into adult life, those skills kind of erode over time, right?
A lot of those.
I was sharing with these folks, with these two esteemed gentlemen during the break, that the gravity of swear words can certainly be impactful. But I was also sharing a circumstance that where it's no longer impactful for a parent that I know because they've used bad words around their young children all the time. Fantastic person. And what I deem to be, from my outside view looking in, a great parent. But the ability to put any weight to any of their conversations is kind of lost because that word, that heavy word, is always around.
Well, I think part of it is it's not just the word itself, because obviously that's a bag of hammers that we need not to open on.
Bag of hammers. That's good. I can use that. Did you coin that? That's
no, I don't think so.
That's money.
I can't be the first one I've
That's
used
money.
that.
I like that word.
Bag of hammers.
A bag of hammers. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that it's also a matter of what you're talking about whenever you're talking about that. Like, it's not because the thing is, like, if a guy, and I'm sure we all know at least one person in our lives who is very loud and very passionate, or they sound passionate all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, except when you're trying to, like you were saying, Eric, about the one situation, make a point. And the problem is, if everything sounds like you're trying to make a point, then ultimately the attempt to make a point becomes pointless.
So good. So good. Mm-hmm. This is part of the of the communication skill.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if everything sounds like you're trying to make a point, then you've already made the point. There's no point to make.
Right.
And no one takes you seriously.
Now back to the parenting thing. So I can relate to that, right? So I swear a lot more than my wife does, right? So my kids hear me swear. But my kids also know when I'm mad. Because I'm the way I speak. Like, they know if I'm mad. I don't have to use profanity. They can hear it and sense it in my voice, tone, and demeanor. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she doesn't swear that much. So when she swears, they know, they're like, oh, Mommy's really mad. Like, there was a couple of times where I came home and Melina's like, Mommy said some bad words today. I'm like, well, Mommy is probably mad about something.
What did
you guys do?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's really the question.
What did you do?
What did you do to make Mommy use those words? So that's two different parents, right? In the same home, they know that when she uses those words, that has some gravity to it. Me, it's just part of my regular vernacular. But they also know, I don't get mad very often, but when I do, they know. Because they can sense it in my voice, the way I speak, what I'm saying, and how I'm saying it. Doesn't matter about the word choice.
Yeah. Profanity loses its effect when it is used or overused.
Yeah, it can. Yes, absolutely.
Right? Generally speaking.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It has a place. I do believe profanity has a place in communication. However,
rap music.
Well, not even that. No, I do, because again, like I know myself, right?
Sorry.
Listen, I know how I communicate. I know when I use profanity to make points, and I can make a point stick.
Yes.
Like, I can be with a client and know who that client is and know that they're okay with profanity and use it in a certain part of that conversation to make a point hit home with that person.
Based upon your word usage and silence.
Well, right. It's the combination
Absolutely.
of everything. It's the demeanor, my body language, my inflection in my voice, the word choices I've used before and after the profane word. It's all part of it. But I know that if I use this word in this instance, that's going to drive a point home.
So, regards back to the written aspect of this, in written communication, profanity. Texting, I'm sure, is different than email. Although in this conversation, we can talk about the texting and emails, unfortunately, are being conflated in the current business.
Ridiculous.
It's different. I like a clear delineation, especially I'm sure in law as well, but in real estate, it's wonderful to be able to have a certain kind of conversation via text with somebody. But when you go to email, which can ultimately, well, I guess you can do that with texting too, but emails oftentimes are forwarded to multiple people, sent to multiple people. I love the formality of email because I think that is a necessary part of the transaction.
Agreed.
And I think you stumbled upon the main word there, which is formality. I think one of the biggest issues in regards, because of the lack of delineation between the two, is the fact that people treat emailing like text messaging. Not so much the other way around. There are examples. Of people who use text messages like emails and just send these long, elongated texts.
Plenty of those on my phone right now.
Guilty.
But if we're going on the essence, and I'm thinking there for the sake of our own sanity, we should, the lineation between one or the other, text messaging should be like a conversation you would have sort of in person. Whereas sending an email be like sending a letter, which is kind of what the original point of it was.
Bingo.
Yeah. Yes.
Bingo. And that's not in the consciousness of people anymore. Like, that's how email was sold to us. I was sharing with Rocco this quick story. I was in corporate America in the late 80s. I worked for a company who had a group of trucking terminals all connected, from computers. This is very archaic. There was no email. There was no internet. But the terminals were connected via phone lines or computer system. We had something Matt introduced us called the Pulse system. You can now write a letter and have it instantly sent to any terminal or any employee at their desktop. Fascinating.
50 sound awesome.
It was I mean, this was well before email or any of that stuff. And then I, was thinking to myself, wow, I'm going to write a letter. I get to write letters to other employees and ask for help without having to call them on the phone and bother them. But there was a real uncertainty of, formality and all that stuff. I would write them formally. Other folks weren't. And it was really interesting to see how they were received and what was read and acted upon and what was dismissed.
Right.
And we'll catch you on the other side of the break, but you'd be surprised how the formality actually worked way better.
Oh, yeah.
Way better.
Absolutely.
It is interesting compared to how texting is today.
Yep.
All right, friends, this is the Entrepreneur Life. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Durzik. Stay tuned for Town Hall News.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Parts of Florida are bracing for heavy rain and wind as a storm system that battered Mexico moves across the Sunshine State.
The National Hurricane Center says the storm that began as Agatha in the Pacific Ocean will be known as Alex in the Atlantic Ocean basin once it reaches tropical storm status. It's been drenching Cuba, where people in Havana have been sloshing through flooded streets. The tropical storm warning is in effect along portions of coastal Florida, as well as the Florida Keys, Florida Bay, Lake Okeechobee, along with the northwestern Bahamas and much of Cuba. The storm is expected to reach tropical storm strength off Florida's east coast by Saturday night and strengthen as it moves out into the Atlantic Ocean. I'm Ben Thomas.
Authorities say a man walked into a Los Angeles emergency ward and stabbed a doctor and 2 nurses yesterday. Surgical technician Lauren McKellen spoke to ABC 7 Los Angeles.
I was upstairs and I saw the helicopters, and so I came downstairs.
Police say the suspect was finally captured and taken to another hospital for self-inflicted injuries. The White House says COVID-19 vaccines for children under 5 will be available soon.
FDA regulators are expected to authorize shots for young children within about 10 days, and the White House says vaccines should start rolling out by June 21st.
Our expectation is that within weeks, every parent who wants their child to get vaccinated will be able to get an appointment.
And that report from White House correspondent Greg Cluxton. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas says he favors increasing the number of armed security officers at public schools, but also says it's important to know exactly what went wrong in the Texas school shooting.
As I said, we need to figure out exactly what happened at the elementary school in Uvalde with their police officer and why he wasn't present.
Senator Cotton was interviewed this week by the Salem Radio Network. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Are you kidding me? Gas prices are up again? Somebody has to do something.
Well, someone did. That's why I use Upside.
Upside? What's that?
It's a free app that pays you back real money for every gallon of gas or diesel you buy. I just earned 25 cents back on every gallon of this tank.
Hold on. So the Upside app is free and you actually get cash back every time you use it? No strings attached?
Yep, it's awesome. Check it out. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up.
Instead of just watching your dollars go into your tank, start putting money back into your wallet with the free app from Upside. With the price of gas today, it's big news and big money. To cash out of your Upside cash, just transfer it to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card. Upside users have already earned over $200 million. Now it's your turn. Download the free Upside app and start getting cash back on every gallon of gas. Use promo code SALEM for an extra 25 cents per gallon cash back in your first fill-up. That's promo code SALEM. Remember, use promo code SALEM for an extra 25 cents per gallon back in your first fill-up.
Score one for JetBlue in the dogfight over who gets to buy Spirit Airlines.
A firm that advises investors on proxy voting says that Spirit shareholders should oppose Frontier Airlines' bid to buy Spirit, saying that JetBlue has made a financially superior offer. Institutional Shareholder Services says both bids carry the risk of being rejected by regulators. However, JetBlue offers a $200 million breakup fee if that happens, and Frontier does not.
That is correspondent Jeremy House reporting. A robotic taxi service has been given a green light to operate in San Francisco.
Cruise's San Francisco service initially will consist of 30 electric vehicles, confined to transporting passengers in less congested parts of the city late at night. John Scott reporting.
Breaking news and analysis can be found at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Bob Agnew. An escaped murderer has been killed by police, but not before he killed a grandfather and his 4 grandsons.
Law enforcement had searched the rural countryside near Centerville, Texas for 3 weeks for Gonzalo Lopez, who stabbed a prison bus driver and escaped May 12th. Lopez was serving life for capital murder in the death of a man who owed money to one of the cartels. Sometime Thursday, he encountered Mark Collins and his 4 grandsons at the family ranch. Sheriff's deputies found their bodies after calls from concerned relatives. He took their pickup and a number of weapons. Andy Kahan with Houston Victims Services and Crime Stoppers, and this from KTRK.
To lose this many family members at this type of what happened, seriously, I can't sugarcoat it. It doesn't get any worse.
Lopez was killed in a shootout with police south of San Antonio Thursday evening, more than 200 miles from Centerville. I'm Tim McGuire.
More of these stories at townhall.com.
It's radio that's apart from the ordinary and powered by St. Barnabas. 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and 1460 WMBA.
Okay, we're back. Matt Derzick bringing us back, as usual, the Entrepreneur Life from 10:30 to 12:30 every Saturday here on Beaver County Radio. However, we will not be here this coming Saturday.
No,
That is correct.
We will be here on Wednesday morning. Rocco and I are going to be here.
Morning? I thought it was afternoon.
Afternoon.
I apologize. I don't even know the time. I just know I'm supposed to be here Wednesday. I figured those other details would work themselves out. I know we're going to be here Wednesday.
Yeah,
And what
Wednesday.
what are
12:30 to 2:30.
12:30 to 2:30.
If I remember correctly.
Wednesday.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, this will be our first venture into the midday week.
Yeah.
Maybe a little different audience.
Yeah.
Different vibe.
Yeah.
Afternoon vibe. The
I'll be
afternoon
coming from the
drive
office
time.
and going back to the office, so it'll be...
Yeah, I'll be going from showing to radio show to showing
Yeah.
to closing.
Yeah.
Life of a realtor.
It'll be a little bit different.
Fantastic.
I won't be in a T-shirt on the weekend like I am now.
It's the
Just
weekend.
a little bit different.
It's
Yeah,
the
exactly.
weekend.
Yeah.
It's casual lawyer mode.
Casual lawyer mode. That's still
gonna be-
effective.
That's going to be the name of my next band.
Casual lawyer mode.
You know I do entertainment law, right, Matt?
Yeah, there we go.
You will be. I will sign you.
Noted.
You can take that. I will help you trademark that band name.
Oh, this show is amazing. We just go
Yeah.
everywhere here.
Going all over the place.
We're talking about written communication. We're talking about verbal communication. We brought the concept of profanity in, when it works, when it doesn't. And now we're going to talk about folks that send video or audio messages and attach them to text and maybe emails.
Yeah.
But before we do, the numbers to reach us, if you care to elaborate on your thoughts on this and how this pertains to maybe a change in how someone needs to think about their communication going into entrepreneurship, which is the purpose of this show. We just have so much fun on the human stuff, don't we? 724-843-1888, 724-774-1888. Give us a ring. Matt will do his best to get you on. You can extrapolate your point of view, and we promise to be kind. Maybe.
Yeah. We'll be kind.
So there is this thing where I use, and let me share the Bomb Bomb thing.
Yeah,
with you.
absolutely. I think it's a
I
great-
use
I
a
think
service,
it's a
Matt.
great
It's called Bomb Bomb Video. Kind of a corny name. Got turned on to it about 3 years ago through another real estate company. It costs X amount of dollars per month. I think it's like $40-$50 a month, which is kind of weighty. But it enables me to take videos on my phone. Their uniqueness is they have a compression thing that really breaks that video down where it's still very clear, but textable. And it'll send the link right there. It's recorded on their server. You can take that link and then send it via email, send it via text, maybe through social media apps, whatever. It enables me to send a message to my client about something when I don't have time to engage in a two-way conversation. But I want them to see my facial expressions. I want them to hear the inflection of my voice. And I've got something important to say. It could be about any aspect of the work we're doing, but hugely beneficial tool. The feedback I've gotten universally from the folks I've used it with is they think it's fantastic. It actually, to be honest with you, I think it shows an extra level of care and concern.
Sure.
Or another way I can express care and concern to my clients that I'm creating a special video on this specific issue. Now, there could be some negative feedback at some point. I haven't felt any yet, But I want your thoughts on a service like that where it's a video messaging service. Now, again, I wouldn't do this if I was saying, hey, I'm going to be 20 minutes late to your house. I'll see you, soon. I wouldn't do that. I'm saying if I've got to get a little bit complex in what I need to tell them, it's not a substitute for a two-way conversation. Right. It's not. But it is an important way to get something out to a client if you need them to marinate something for a while.
Yes.
You're going to ask them questions.
That's the point. So that coming back to our discussion earlier, so I think doing it to your point of using that video, which I love, and I'm going to start using it in my practice. I'm giving you information I need you to take away and think about. We don't need to solve the problem or answer this question now. I'm just giving you this information and my take on it, so you can have some time. I don't want an immediate response. I want you to think about it. That's what that's for. What I was talking about earlier about these voice memos, right? Like I have people that send me voice memos, which I'm not a fan of.
Voice memos.
Like it's instead of typing a text or calling me on the iPhone, they press the button, they record something, and then send it via text.
Yes.
9 times out of 10, that's information we need to discuss and sort through, or I need to actually visualize and see and write down somewhere. I can't stand that. Like that's something like
I'm running 20 minutes late.
Well, there's those, which again, that's stupid in of itself.
But it's the perfect thing for a text. Short spits of information.
Yes. But if you're sending me a 3 to 5 minute voice memo
right.
of like, hey, I want to do this, and I need to do this, and I'm going to do I'm like, this should be a phone conversation we should be having. Because one, when I get that text, you have no idea where I am. So I may listen to it, and then I'm like, oh, crap. Like it's, I'm here. I can't hear. The voice may be bad. And that's the other thing, too, with stuff like that. I don't think a lot of people replay it before they send it. Because I've gotten messages where I'm like, I couldn't hear a word you said. Like, you may have thought you were speaking clearly, but there was a lot of background noise. And it's a wait. Then I just wasted 10 minutes trying to listen to something twice, then having to call this person like, hey, couldn't hear anything you said. Let's have a discussion. Like, I think people need to be more thoughtful in the way they communicate with others, especially in those modalities. Like, I love the video, like the bomb. Like, I think that's great because there's a point to it.
Purpose.
I'm giving you information that I want you to take away and think about. We should not solve this right now. This is something you need to process. That's the whole point of that, and that's what I love.
Matt?
Yeah, I think the problem with I think the video aspect of it is a good way to send messages like that. And again, I think the difference is here where you understand, and Rocco would understand whenever he starts to use it, that it's not meant to be part of a two-way conversation.
Right.
Because if you want to have a two-way conversation, you're going to have a two-way conversation. Yes. And I think, again, it goes back to what Eric said right at the start of the show, or I think it might have been wrong, I forget. But whatever it was about state of mind, frame of mind, right?
I'll take credit for that one, Matt.
Yeah.
1-0.
That if you don't understand why it is you're texting somebody or talking to somebody, then you're going to sound confused to the other person. You're going to, send messages that should have been, and I think too, whenever you send a voice clip, it has the immediacy of a phone call without the directness of a phone conversation.
That's a good point.
And it's basically, I'm going to tell you this because I want you to say something back. And I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
It just doesn't feel right,
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I think, again, to go back to the point I made earlier that I tried to make, that we learned some skills when we were younger about when things are appropriate, when to be on our best behavior, or we curb our actions based upon the audience, right?
Sure.
So this is another example, Matt, where I think to be effective in communication, especially as a business person, a couple breaths need to be taken, and reflection has to be, what is the right tool for this particular client in this particular circumstance? This bomb video sometimes, and again, you have to learn how to use it. I mean, I'm sure my rule is if I'm sending a bomb video that's 7 minutes or longer, I just need to say, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yes.
Okay. I'm guilty. Have I sent 10, 15-minute bomb videos in the beginning? I did. And they were effective, but not the best way. I can keep it under 7 minutes and articulate it and be thoughtful. In certain circumstances, it's awesome. My point is, I need to be able to delineate. Love that word.
Yeah.
I won't take credit for it today because you said it and you said it. Right. So maybe we all get a point for that. But I need to understand my client and how they ingest information. What is the task at hand or the issue at hand? And what is the best vehicle for me to, at that moment, get to them? And
Yes.
and that takes a level of reflection. And you got to want to make a good decision, right? Good decisions happen because you want to make a good decision in life. But you sometimes have to think maybe an extra 15, 20 seconds to verify that that's the best decision. Don't always fly by the seat of your pants in communication. We're all guilty of it.
Yes.
Our entire society is guilty of it in very bad ways. But if we just take that breath sometimes and say, whoa, wait a second, you know what? Probably best for me to schedule a call with this person.
Well, right. I mean, so think about it this way. Humans by nature were egocentric, right? So we're always thinking about things from our limited perspective. In communication, I truly believe to be an effective communicator in business, in life, whatever, I have to think of how does the person to whom I'm communicating receive information? That's the first question I have to ask myself. Because if this person is an auditory learner, then maybe that voice memo makes sense because they're not going to read what I send them. Maybe they don't want to have a conversation. They just want to hear something.
Right.
So we need to understand, how does a person communicate? And I think we talked about it last week. I'll ask clients, what's the best way for me to contact you? Is it phone? Is it text? Is it email? How would you like me to communicate with you? So I kind of set that stage because they're like, hey, just give me a call. Okay, perfect. They like to have a discussion.
But isn't it interesting how sometimes in the initial interviews, you try to raise that with the client and you do your best to understand that, but it will change. You have to be adaptable because
of course. Life is fluid.
Yeah. You have to adapt to your audience.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's, your business partner, your family, your friends. If things change, you have to change along with it. You cannot assume that the way you want to communicate is the way they're going to respond the best.
Exactly. It's always you always have to look at it from the other side.
Yeah. So here's what I struggle with. I send a lot of voice texts. They're not voice message texts. They're just voice text. I use voice texting a lot while I drive.
Yeah, but it's a text message. It's transcribed from your voice.
And I always end up saying this in the following. And if any of my clients are listening to me, they're going to laugh. But if I'm getting a little wordy, I say, apologize for how long. It's a thought I wanted to get to you right away. I think it's imperative, and I apologize for any bad grammar. I'm using voice text. I let them know, and I'm pretty good at it. I've gotten better. I don't know if I'm good at it. I'm better, but I'm guilty of rambling on that stuff because those words, for me, are so important that I give it to them. I often make the mistake of not thinking about that unique client and how they ingest information and process information and how they operate. What do I know about them as a person, which will help me craft better communication? I often don't do that, and I'm guilty of sending wordy text messages, and I use the excuse, well, it's because I'm using voice text. It's a bad excuse.
It is.
But I do it out of expediency, and it's just things I have to learn and figure out.
Yeah, and look, it's an evolving process.
Plus, I'm old. It's just texting. I mean, what do you expect from an old guy? I mean, God. I mean, really, seriously. I didn't want to do texting in the beginning when it came out. It was like the most ridiculous thing in the world. We had email. Why do we have to text now?
But look, I think we do have to understand how the other person communicates, right?
Sure.
So it's I know how I receive information. I do not need the details. I need to know where we are. Is it a problem that you've solved and you want my validation of the solution, or you need my help solving it? That's what we need. I will then ask you for information I may need to get to the conclusion.
Right.
But so people that communicate with me need to understand that, because if you just start telling me a story in a bunch of information, 30 seconds, I'm gone. My head's 6 other places. I'll give you an example. Last night, if my wife's listening, she's going to get mad. Oh, well. We got
sorry, Laura.
Well, yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. But she had the she's redoing stuff in the house, doing an awesome job, kind of remodeling the downstairs, and we're moved the TV and got new Comcast service. So she's calling me. I'm driving her. I was driving to your studio last night actually, and I was talking to her, and she starts in with this story about Comcast. And I said, listen, does it work? But what she did, which I appreciate, she's like, yes, but there's some stuff I need to tell you. So she recognized that, okay, I know how he communicates, but these are things I want you to know of what happened. So it actually was information I needed. They had to put a wire through our floor, and we're getting new flooring. What's the new flooring guy going to do? But it was kind of like I felt that like she's winding up a big story, and I'm like, when I get home, the question was, when I get home, will the TV work? And it was like, yes, but there's stuff I need to tell you, so shut up.
Men across the valley in unison are now shaking their heads, going like,
"Yeah." I mean, I'm
sorry,
and I love her, but it's that's how I communicate. So.
Oh gosh, this is so good today, so good. Friends, the Entrepreneur Life. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Durzik, Beaver County Radio, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA, and the new 95. Well, that's not true. Which one was new? Which one was old, Matt?
95.7 is a new one.
Okay, so 99.3 FM and new 95.7 FM. Always presented by St. Barnabas and always streaming live at beavercountyradio.com. We will be right back.
Teleforum is a talk show. It happens every weekday. So after you enjoy your weekend, please join me, 9 o'clock every weekday morning. It goes till noon. It's Teleforum. It's a talk show. My name's Eddie Crow. I'm the host. It's available in buku locations. AM 1230 WBVP, AM 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM presented by St. Barnabas, 95.7 FM, streaming live at beavercountyradio.com and live and free with the Beaver County Radio app.
Hey, it's time to wake up, Beaver Valley. Hi, this is Pastor David Grove from the Church of the Redeemed of Beaver Valley. After over 2 years on the air, it seems that some of you still cannot get up in time. So I've got good news. Wake Up Beaver Valley is moving to a new time, now airing from 9 to 10, this and every Saturday morning. It's time to wake up and turn our hearts back to the cross of Jesus Christ. So I invite you to wake up early this Saturday. To find out more, it's Wake Up Beaver Valley, Saturdays from 9 until 10 a.m. on Beaver County Radio. God bless you.
For 3 decades, Western Pennsylvania's #1 car cruise event of the season has happened in Beaver Falls. This year, the Beaver Falls Car Cruise is happening Saturday, June 11th. This year's cruise includes a special opening ceremony and parade starting at 11 honoring veterans. The program includes an antique war-era airplane flying over 7th Avenue in Beaver Falls by Air Heritage. Enjoy dozens of food vendors, oldies DJs, a live Beaver County Radio broadcast, and the biggest, longest cruise lane anywhere. The event is coordinated by the Beaver Falls Car Cruise Committee and sponsored by these major sponsors: St. Barnabas, Beaver County Radio, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Ron Lewis Ford Kia, Patriot Home Care, Wilds Automotive Specialties, Eddie Isabella State Farm Insurance in Beaver Falls, Sully's Towing, the Beaver Falls Health Mart, the Antique Emporium, Tri-County McDonald's, Vintage Torque, and Valvoline. Follow the Beaver Falls Car Cruise on Facebook or follow the crowd to the 31st Annual Beaver Falls Car Cruise from 11 to 7 on June 11th in Beaver Falls.
It's a voice you recognize, the voice of Beaver Valley. Coming to you from an all-star quartet. 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and 1460 WMBA.
I still say if we recorded these breaks,
no, you don't.
No,
Well, no,
that last one we definitely don't want.
No, absolutely not. For your sake.
I might not make it back to the show next week.
100% not.
Oh, man. So what about the spirit of texting being what it originally was sold to us as, which is simply short bursts of communication to get I'm talking back in like T9 texting, just to kind of like scheduling, logistics. I'm running late. And that's how texting was initially sold.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's funny, too? You mentioned the fact that there was T9. I think if they had just gone straight from, you know what? You just like uncorked a rabbit hole in this whole conversation.
That's what we do.
Which is going to be the name of the first album by Casual Lawyer Mode.
Yeah.
Is that the whole idea of T9 texting, I think, really sort of opened up this whole genre of abbreviations like LOL, WTF, BRB, stuff like that. If they had a technology at that point to just do what we have now, which is the keyboards on our phones where you could send out, messages easy, like a keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
I almost wonder if that happens right away instead of the T9, if everything changes.
It's a great question.
Interesting. Yeah, that's. I think text messaging has lost its point.
Did it ever have a point?
Well, it did. So it did. So, and I'll give you an example. So I was fascinated. So I probably looked like a creep the other night. So I was at the gym, and I was on a machine, and she was probably in her early 20s, like at a machine, kind of diagonal from me. And I could see her, like she was sitting with her back to me, and I could see her phone. And this is how crazy I am. I literally timed it for 4.5 minutes. She was typing text messages to the same person, like just send. It was like a book.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, and during this entire time, she wasn't using the machine she was sitting on. So I was kind of irritated about that because I was waiting for that machine. But I was fascinated. I'm like, this is someone early 20s. This is how they communicate. Like, it was a stream of consciousness for 4.5 minutes. And I'm not being facetious. Like, this was literally, she had to have written 3,000 words. Like, it was just, I've never seen somebody's thumbs move so fast. And it was just long text, send, long text. And there was no responses coming. Because, I mean, she was literally sitting 10 feet from me.
I think she was fighting with somebody.
But what I'm saying is, but do you see my point? Like that generation, that's how they use text messaging. Like, that is their mode of actual communication.
Yeah.
It's not about brevity anymore. It's not about short and to the point. It's about whatever I want to say. I don't want to say to your face or over the phone. I want to hide behind the phone itself.
There's definitely some
and
of that.
send you that. That's what I think is happening. I think people are using this device as their shield. They become keyboard warriors. So instead of having that hard conversation where obviously she was upset with someone, I'm just going to send you my thoughts for 4.5 minutes straight.
But I think you wind it all the way back. I think I think avoidance started in my parents' generation and maybe their with the telephone initially. The telephone was a huge convenience thing and wonderful for speaking to people with vastly long distance of space between them.
Sure.
But it also was used as an avoidance thing. When you're calling your neighbor to tell them something because you don't want to knock on their door and tell them, that's the first, it didn't originate with this generation. It's just a different tool now. The internet came in 96, right? That became a huge avoidance thing.
But when but
even in commerce, it became an avoidance thing.
But so using the neighbor example, is that avoidance or convenience?
I think it
can be looked at both ways.
You can conflate those two.
Well, okay. I mean, I understand that, but okay, is it easier for me if it's something my neighbor needs to know? Is it just easier to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, by the way, there's a dog in your front yard," or do I say, "Let me go over and knock on my neighbor's door in the front yard with the dog and say, by the way, there's a dog out here." Like, I think
depends
there is
how friendly you are,
well, right,
and how friendly the dog is.
Right, but I think there's
touché.
But I think there's some, I don't think we can say it's pure avoidance.
No, not pure. No. But I think. Well, let's really drill down here.
Drill it.
That is basically the telephone. Go back to the telegraph. The moment we started getting information to each other outside of the spoken, physical, in-person word was the start of, I guess, modern communication outside of in-person communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it started.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, it's not bad. It's different. I think what kids are doing today, as I observe, because I'm not in there doing it with them, I think those long text messages, those text essays, whatever, is to us, but to them, if they were never comfortable picking up the phone and calling somebody because no one around them was ever doing that, ever, right? Then they really don't know different.
But here's the problem, and we're gonna go here. The people that can communicate in a different way are the ones that will be successful in the world. If that's their only way they know how to communicate
you're
with
100%
people,
right. I'm not talking about success.
But I'm saying,
why
I
they're
think
that way they are.
But I think that's a point because we're talking about entrepreneurship,
Certainly,
right? I I think
that was the original point of the show, right?
that generation has to understand that is not how the world communicates in the business world and in the professional world. And you've got to be comfortable speaking face to face and having hard conversations with people, and looking someone in the eye and telling them bad news or telling them something they don't want to hear. If you have the ability to do that, you can be very successful in life, because you can see somebody like a younger person that knows how to communicate and does know how to communicate. They're head and shoulders above each other. Like it's an art form. It's a lost art, and I think
it's definitely an art form today because it's done so infrequently.
Correct, and that's what I'm saying. If they can learn to take, because they probably are articulate in their writing, right? If they can take the ability to express the emotion they do via text message or however they communicate verbally, like you and I and the three of us are having a conversation, think about how far ahead that can put them above their generation.
100%.
Like that's what they need to start thinking about. Because I'm watching this, I'm like, this is an insane amount of words this person is typing. Like it blew my mind.
Matt, what is it that telephone communication, forget in-person communication, but telephone communication is avoided? You're probably not the right demographic. Let's just say for those roughly 8 to 10 years younger than you. Why is telephone communication so avoided? They go to text by default. Why do you think that is? Because I believe that to be 100% true. I've seen enough proof of it that I am convinced that is a good observation.
Yeah, I know why.
Yeah, and well, we'll get there. I would say a lot of it is probably a level of security or insecurity, rather, when it comes to talking to somebody. I think it's that mixed with convenience, because you have the convenience of being able to just type something out and send it to somebody, mixed with the realization of, hey, if I do it this way, it's just an easy way to send a message.
Okay.
And you can reshape it, you can clarify it if you choose to do so. And I think what gets taken away from that is the timber of, communicating them and sort of letting someone know your emotions. Going to Rocco's example of the woman at the gym who was sending all those text messages all at once and not, sending a conversation. Let's say she had something like a bomb or something like that, where she could send that in a video. Would that have been better? Would that have been better for her to do it that way? And I don't know. It's tough for me to say, because when it comes to communication, like I can have conversations with people, in written form and communication form, but it depends on the person and depends on the situation. I think that's one of the problems where we talk about finites when it comes to stuff like that, but I don't think there ever is going to be any, because everyone's different and they communicate differently about different things. I know there were situations even yesterday where I know that if I had, as Rocco said, had the authority to say what it is that was in my heart out into the real world, I might have gotten arrested, and that, and I think that sort of does create a shield, for better or worse, where people can be as blunt as they are without having to, and I think that's a positive way in which texting can be, is that it can channel the emotions. It can channel the emotions to, because we were talking earlier about how, the downside is that it could be seen as, emotionless whenever you send an email or text. Well, sometimes it's good for people, because sometimes their emotions can't be controlled. And
True.
So when that happens, and obviously if that's an issue, then that's another issue. But, I do think it allows for that level of sort of security, even though it may stem from an emotional insecurity.
So I agree with.
I apologize, that was like word salad, but
no, it makes sense.
That was solid.
And I agree with those points. I think another reason that generation goes to text, because they're distracted, and they live in a life of distraction and trying to do 6 things at once. They're Snapchatting someone, texting someone, playing video games, where if they have to get on a phone call with someone, that's all they can do.
That's
and
true.
they can't figure out how to focus on one thing. That generation is so distracted that having a phone call, like, you have to be engaged in that for it to be an effective mode of communication. Now, to your point about the emotion, like, that's where I think people go wrong. Like, I think communication is emotion. Like, you have the biggest part of communication is the emotion behind it. That's how you can act. Like, I can sit here and say, I'm really happy today. Do I sound happy? No. But if I say, I'm so happy today, I cannot wait to go do all, like, different.
You're hanging with me, of course.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, people, so if I write in my text message, hey, Eric, I'm really happy today. Like, you don't know if I am or not. It's how. So I think that.
So they're losing some of the human experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
they're losing the emotion behind communication.
Yeah. And again, that's our opinion because we're older, but I have definitely have the opinion that part of the human experience is lost because if we replace written communication as opposed to interactive human communication, like physical communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to what we're talking about with the whole, T9 level of communication, I think a lot of people of my generation, perhaps younger generation too, we sometimes we develop this habit where we'll put little phrases at the end of something just to sort of taper off the impact of it. Like there's this phenomenon where people will just like
passive aggressiveness,
kind of actually, where a lot of like if you took like half the stuff we typed as our feelings and then put LOL at the back end of it, you think, oh my goodness, they're having a crisis. They're having an internal personal crisis every waking moment of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's this self-awareness that, they may be doing that, but they don't want to push that forward. And I think a lot of that goes back to the confidence of, how do I actually feel and how much can I feel in a certain situation?
Go ahead.
They are non-committal. That is the problem. They can't commit to even something. When you put an LOL or some qualifier at the end, that means you want to say this, but you can't commit to it because you're like, I really like this, but whatever you want.
Well, I don't want to offend anybody.
But that's my point. Like, have some conviction in the way you communicate.
Yeah.
Have some conviction in your opinions and what you want. Like that drives me absolutely crazy because it just shows a lack of commitment.
Well, it confuses me because I deal with a lot of agents that are younger than me, and they're coming from a place on a communication circumstance which is tough for me to understand, and I'm sure my methods of communication might be tough for them to understand. I can't imagine how because I'm very descriptive, overly descriptive. Good.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the biggest issues that stems from that, and I agree with what Rocco's saying about being non-committal. But I think one of the biggest reasons, and we'll sort of swing it back to the entrepreneurship level of things, is especially when it comes to the workforce, when it comes to the workplace, they don't know. And I think this is what entrepreneurs moving forward have to do in order to have a successful business.
You're not getting credit for that word.
Oh, no. Trust me, I'm getting negative credit for that one. That was tripping from first base to second base. I understand what I did there.
That's all right, man.
The point is,
Pirates.
If the reality of the situation is that somebody in a workplace feels like they need to emote, but they're not sure if they want to, it should be up to those in charge, the entrepreneurs in a business, to be forward, day one saying, listen, this is how I communicate. This is what we talk about. This is what we don't talk about. And I think if there's not those parameters set right away, if the entrepreneur isn't committal to levels of communication with their own employers, then the employees are not going to commit back. They're not going to be able to say what they want to say. They may taper it off. They may be passive aggressive about it because they don't know.
Is there a level of fear in there?
Absolutely. There's fear. There's a fear that if I wear my emotions on my sleeve and tell how I want to feel, it may offend somebody to the point where I might get an HR notice just because I was having a bad day, And I think if employees fear that may be the case, they won't commit because they know that it could lead to some much more damaging situations.
See, in my corporate career, and maybe because of the way I'm wired, which is not always a good thing, I think that I never felt that. Like, I knew there was boundaries, but I didn't have a worry about putting that much restraint on my communications. Does that make any sense? Like, I wasn't worried about that so much.
Right. I can understand that. And again, it's all very situational.
Sure.
I tend to think, and again, this is my perspective. I tend to think that generation has a hard time committing to anything. They're wishy-washy. And that means even committing to the emotion of a situation, right? Because there's so much confusion, right? We're told all these different things. These kids coming up, they're told all these different ways the world works, and there's no real path, right? They're not given a playbook. Like, this is how the world works. Yep. So they come out and there's so much confusion. They don't know how to operate in certain situations, so they won't commit to anything. To me, it's like, if you want something, if you want to be something, do something, or have something, it takes 100% commitment to it. So if you want to have a good conversation with someone and get to the essence and solve the issue, commit to it. Commit to the conversation. Commit to what you're saying. Don't be wishy-washy. If you have an opinion, say it and be committed to it.
Right.
Like, you may not like everything I say. You may not love my opinion, but it's my opinion. I'm committed to it. I'm not going to be wishy-washy. And if it offends you, that's your problem, not mine.
Right.
Like, that is, and that's what we got to get past in this society as well. This whole offensive communication, like, offending someone is that person's problem.
Right.
I'm just saying my opinion in words. And because my words, the way I structured them and the language I use offended you, I'm sorry, but that's on you.
Right.
And we've got to commit to certain things. And that's the problem with communication.
Well, I think we've conflated is the good word of the day. But I think we've taken a concept years ago, Matt, and I want your thoughts on this next. Being offended, okay, is a big wormhole we can go down and stay there for days.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I can only reference what I've lived through. Being offended meant something different decades prior than kind of what it means now. We've expanded, I believe, and this is my opinion, we've expanded the definition of being offended to include such more of our communication with each other, whereas some folks are now drenched in the concept of being offended that they're looking for anything to be offended about. Whereas you could be having a conversation with somebody that you think the world of, and there's nothing coming from an area of hurt, or you're not trying to hurt the other person.
Yeah.
But if they're wired in a certain way where everything's coming at me and they're paranoid about being offended or someone's aggrieving them, they're going to look for a reason to validate the fact that there's an oppressive statement in there somewhere. It sounds mind-boggling, but I see it all the time. It's like we've expanded what offended means. And I think there's no offense in a lot of our communications, especially because it's only brought to the surface because people are looking for it.
So to clarify what you're saying that because of the fear of being offended or being offensive to someone, that it's taken sort of the directness and the bite out of one-on-one communication.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, he puts it in
yes,
in one sentence, but you're exactly right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's a hesitancy.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that has to go with, what you were saying earlier about the internet being founded in 1996 or 1993, whatever
Roughly,
it was.
yeah.
So in the 90s. That the reality is because we have so many different perspectives of life now that, again, it feels like because there's so many options, it's kind of like going to the grocery store nowadays. Where
seeing empty shelves.
I feel like such an old man about saying what I'm about to say, but we're going there. We're going there.
You are old now. You're 30, man.
Join the club.
Almost.
Join the club.
Almost. I am about just under 2 months away. We're not going to go there yet.
Oh, we're not going to let you forget that. Don't worry.
I'm sure. But the fact is, you go into a store and you have all these options of food, and you're just, it's like, oh, I like that one. I like that one too. And then you just sort of lose yourself in this indecisiveness.
Okay.
And I think there does have to be this internal level of, making a decision and saying, okay, this is how what I want. This is how I'm going to talk.
They overloaded, you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. And I think because of that, a lot of people say, and especially when communicating with somebody else, like they'll, want to avoid any type of firmness or directness because they're just not sure.
Mm-hmm.
You think
conviction.
Yeah. They'll lack conviction because they feel that if they, talk to somebody, and I think that I don't know.
Are they afraid of offending? Like if I see 10 different kinds of pizza brands, and I see 10, and I'm contemplating which one to buy. If I buy this one, I'm validating that I like this one, but that might upset somebody else.
Well, in that case, it's a little different because here's the thing. Pizzas and people are two different things. People have a lot more emotions than pizza.
Okay.
And so the fact is,
it's Pizza Man.
If you buy a pizza from one place and, you're like, okay, I tried it, wasn't my thing, and, I'll just, go from there and try something else. That's just pizza. But if you are talking to somebody and then you decide, like this could be applied to relationships, like, oh, maybe they're not for me, maybe I'll move on from that. That person could run the other way and start, spreading lies about you and everything else. And, we could talk about cancel culture one of these days. I going down that road where you can absolutely be thrown on the wall. And in your heart that, you made the right decision for yourself. But to the rest of the world, it may look very, and I'll be completely honest.
I think I get it.
In the deep depths of my soul, there's a small part of me that is absolutely fearful as all get out about cancel culture. That someone somewhere I'm gonna rub them the wrong way. Then all of a sudden it's gonna look like the history books are against me. Is it rational? No, but it's there.
I mean, what do you do with that? No, I mean,
I'm trying to unpack it.
There's so many ways to go there.
Well, so look, let me try and bring us back to some level of what we were talking about before, because I think we're going off on all these tangents, which are great.
That's what we do,
right? So I think what I believe has happened with communication, right? Years ago, being offended was pretty objective. These are things that are just offensive in general, right?
Pretty accepted by most.
Pretty accepted by the majority of people.
Yeah.
Now we've allowed being offended to be subjective. So whatever you want to be offended by, if you don't like my shirt, I'm offended by that. Like in society has normalized that. That is the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's really what it boils down to. We have normalized
being
allowing people to be egreged by whatever they feel they're egreged by.
Right.
There are certain things that are absolutely offensive.
No doubt.
That we can all agree upon in society.
And they were decades ago.
Correct. These are offensive things.
Yes.
Being offended is different. Being offended is subjective. If I get offended because I come in and Matt says your shoes are terrible, dude, I'm like, that's not nice to say. They're new shoes, man. Like,
they look all right.
They're acceptable.
Under Armour shoes.
We're not offended by
them. Very dad level shoes.
But here's the oh man, now I am offended. You went there, man. I don't have grass stains on them yet.
That's true. That's true. You got to get the grass stains on them first.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
But here's the thing. So if I got offended by that, that's okay in society. And for me to get mad at Matt because of that, that's okay. That's been normalized.
It's actually expected.
Right, and that's the problem. Like my whole thing is like, America is founded on differing opinions, right? We have to, as a society, be able to have communication with one another where we can disagree. We don't all see the world the same way. I see it out of my eyes. You are standing on the opposite side of the room. You see the world differently. Even though we're in the same room, your perspective of the world in this moment is completely different than mine. Yours isn't right, and neither is mine. It's just our perspectives. Mm-hmm. When we communicate with one another, we have to take that same level of intellect and use it in communication. Understanding that what Matt is saying is his perspective. He views Under Armour gray shoes as shoes a dad would wear. I happen to be a dad. I have those shoes on. In his head, that was just a statement because it made sense to him. If I get offended by that, that's my own problem.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I wouldn't have said that to you if I didn't, comprehend that, he's going to get this, because I might say something like, those are the very data purposes. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. But that's what it comes down to, communication. We have lost the ability to try and understand that communication with one another is just two people's differing perspectives on the information at hand. That's it. And we can't get offended by your perspective, because if I get offended by Matt saying that means that in my mind, my opinion is more important than his.
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot we've got to get past normalizing this in society, because it's created all these problems. And this generation coming up that now, to Matt's point, they're afraid to communicate because they're afraid of offending someone. What is that going to do detrimentally to them long term?
Well, okay, so and this is a direct
down that rabbit hole, dude.
Relation with business too, because
yes,
a lot of businesses, especially young startups, have been squashed out by quote unquote cancel culture.
Yes,
and it's a definite thing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But my point to you is, like my son's 21, 22. When is my daughter's like 19. The point is with them, they would prefer to text and call, and I feel terrible. Now they pick up my calls and we talk. But I can tell that their preferred method of communication is they would actually be happy if their phone never rang. And, you know, it's I laugh about it, you know, we joke about it, but in my quiet moments, I'm just horrified by that that's where we are. Yeah. Like they're avoiding the verbal, the physical, the somewhat physical conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's such a loss.
We have to communicate with my son via Snapchat. That's how he responds to us.
Yeah, so. I just
Gabe, if you're listening, start responding to our texts.
Gabe, where are you? All right, Rocco, Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Durst, The Entrepreneur Life, and a whole bunch more. We'll be right back.
I'm State Senator Jim Brewster. This summer, many Pennsylvanians will spend time on our beautiful rivers and lakes. Please follow these safety tips to enjoy those special moments fishing and boating. Remember to wear a life jacket while boating. It's simple, but a life jacket really does save lives. All children age 12 and under must wear a life jacket. Don't drink while boating. The rules are the same as driving a car. Officers will be on patrol looking for signs of impairment. Have a float plan. Before you head out, send a text to someone and let them know you're on the water. And don't forget to check the weather forecast. For more information of safe boating, visit my website, senatorbrewster.com or www.fishandboat.com. I'll see you out on the water.
The ballpark is coming into your living room or the dashboard of your car. That's because Pirates Baseball is on Beaver County Radio. Set the dial to WBVP WMBA 99.3 FM or 95.7 FM, and then turn the volume up to hear the most beautiful sound in the world. Pirates Baseball is sure to be a hit this year, and it's presented locally by the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority, Express Employment Professionals, Dr. C. Timothy Lipp, Falcones Moon Township Board, Keystone Wellness Program, and St. Barnabas, among others, right here on Beaver County Radio.
95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com, invite you to tune in to Sounds of Faith. Tune in Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 for a mix of the best sacred music of all time. Sounds of Faith is brought to you by Crawford Tire and Beaver, the William Murphy Funeral Home, City Rescue Mission, MRS Physical Therapy, Circle of Friends, J&J Spratt Funeral Home, and Rome Monument and Inspirational Gifts. Sounds of Faith, uplifting, relaxing, and inspiring radio. Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com.
St. Barnabas thanks you for listening to Beaver County Radio.
All right, friends, The Entrepreneur Life, Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Durst, always having more fun than the law allows. Saturday mornings, 10:30.
Apparently not, because we're still here.
Yeah, well, they haven't come for me yet. I've been saying that my whole life.
Or us.
Friends, a little self-promotion here if we can. Rocco and I do a podcast within the Eric McKenna Project. We do a series of shows, I should say, that's within the Eric McKenna Project podcast. At ericmckenna.com. This series of shows is called How We See It. And we basically take headlines and things happening in our world every 2 weeks on a bi-weekly basis, and we sit down and we hash them out. It's in direct opposition to why I started the podcast 3 years ago. We have a kind of a non-political mantra there. We do everything but politics on the Eric McKenna Project, but we got a lot of feedback from folks that they wouldn't mind seeing our thoughts on things because invariably when Rocco's on this show, things come out, we express ourselves.
We do.
So by sitting down and doing this, it gives us a chance to, in a very, I would say we're very non-controversial.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, it's almost kind of fun.
Yeah.
But the feedback's been great. It's called How We See It. We just recorded episode 2, which will be released today in all the places you get your podcast. And, of course, you can check it all out at ericmckenna.com. But yesterday was a fun one.
It was fun.
Yeah, and it's a little more unvarnished than what we're allowed to do on the radio here.
You think?
Matt keeps us sane.
That profanity does come out a little bit.
Not often. Not for the sake of profanity.
No.
For emphasis in the conversation.
Emphasize points, like I said earlier.
Yes,
man.
but it's
But again,
ericmckenna.com.
it goes back to, what we were saying before about, sort of understanding the other side and understanding how to communicate with others. Because, again, in the context of, conversations between you guys and us off the air, we may use words that, it doesn't matter if they are subjectively meant for just enhancing, they can be seen as subjectively offensive.
Speak for yourself. But anyways, my point is we're having a blast, and I would encourage all of you to, if you have time, check it out. If you're into podcasts, if you dig that kind of stuff. Yeah. The Eric McKenna Project is a long-form conversational podcast that covers a variety of things. We're having an absolute incredible time. Rocco has been a recurring guest almost from day one. Yeah. And I
remember the first one I did, man.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. So it's another way to express ourselves, and I think in this sphere, podcasting adds a lot of relevance to society. Enables what I'm hoping is to bring back long-form, physical, in-person conversations. The irony is it's being delivered via the web. But ultimately, the essence of the origination of the conversation is 2 or 3 or 4 people sitting in a room and having a relaxed conversation with no sound bites, unvarnished, the whole bit. And it's refreshing.
It's a good time.
It gives time to vet things out.
Really
so just want to mention that. And, of course, we're going to go back to the talking here because there's so much to talk about, being offended. And as a young entrepreneur, we talked about in a prior show, you've got to think about what your sensibilities are and so forth. But Matt brings a great point. Like, you have to have a heightened sense of awareness naturally in your business communication now because, like you mentioned, Rocco, people can be offended.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'm a professional service firm, right? We're a law firm, so I have to be very careful in the way I communicate, right? Because, and again, I don't think I have polarizing views on anything. I think I'm like most Americans when it comes to my viewpoints. But I'm very.
Well, your baseball team's a little questionable.
But also, let's park that. Let's park that.
What can I say?
But what I'm saying is, I think when I communicate, I have to be very cognizant of the way I communicate, how I communicate, what I'm speaking of. Not because I'm worried about offending anybody, because my opinions are my opinions, and I'm not one to kind of water down my viewpoints for the fear of offending someone. It's more of, we have a firm that has a certain image, and it's an authentic image, and I've got to make sure that everything I do and say is in alignment with that vision and that image. It's truly authentic, but I have to make sure that nothing I do is kind of outside of the bounds. Because I'm a lawyer 24/7. I don't just come home and take my lawyer hat off and just be a different person. I am the face of the firm. Like, we're building something, so I have to look at it from that perspective. That doesn't change who I am or change my viewpoints. I may choose different words. My opinion will be the same,
right?
But I may choose different language to express it, or a different modality of communication to express it based upon the audience. And as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you have to think about these things, right? You have to think of, who is the audience? What am I saying? Does this make sense? How is this going to play out short-term and long-term? These are all things as an entrepreneur you have to think about when it comes to communicating, especially when it comes to communicating things that may be deemed or may offend somebody.
So what are both of your thoughts on the idea of necessary intelligence when crafting communications and knowing the landscape of 2022 that we're living in, and then also being true and authentic to who you are and the image of your business, like to maneuver that? I granted different for everybody, but it's easy to be heavy on the authenticity side or heavy on the fearful side of being conservative in what you say, right? I mean, finding that balance has to be tough.
Well, again, I think it comes to, again, the, what exactly are you doing when it comes to a transaction or a piece of communication? Because you can, sell a product to somebody or sell, like a house to somebody.
Stay on pizza.
Or okay, pizza. And you sell a pizza to somebody whose views you may not agree with. They may come into the store, and you can just tell by their demeanor, by how they dress, what's on their head. You may not agree with what they are about, but does any of that factor into what it is that you're doing? I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be cognizant of that.
It shouldn't.
Well, so here's the thing. So you got to look at business from two perspectives, either transactional or relational, plain and simple. So man, we're at the news already.
Sorry.
Hold that thought. Transactional or relational?
I will hold it.
Relational or transactional?
Yeah, I'll hold it.
All right, friends. The Entrepreneur Life. Eric McKenna, Rocco, Cozza, Matt Durzik on 1230 WBVP and 1460 Super Talk WNBA.
I knew it was coming.
99.3 FM and the new 95.7 FM, always presented by our great friends at St. Barnabas. They actually let us come on the air. Yeah. Can you believe that? And streaming live at beavercountyradio.com. Stay tuned for our friends. Actually, I never met them. Town Hall News. Yeah. Coming right at you.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WNBA Ambridge.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew with Washington. After more than 100 days of war, Ukraine's president has addressed the annual meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
When the war hit its 50th day, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky explained why Ukrainians didn't listen to Western leaders advising them to flee. They didn't know us, he said, and they didn't know how brave Ukrainians are, how much we value freedom. In his recent speech to U.S. mayors, Zelensky argued that the war in his country affects all democratic countries. The full-scale war in Europe and the destabilization of world markets, which occurred because of Russia, directly affects the lives of every nation and all cities of the free world. I'm Karen Chamas.
Much of the Florida Panhandle, along with parts of Cuba and the Bahamas, are in a tropical storm warning. That system that battered Mexico now moving through the Gulf of Mexico. A proposal now to use taser-armed drones to stop mass shootings.
Taser developer Axon says it's working to build drones armed with the electric stunning weapons that could fly into schools and, quote, help prevent the next Uvalde, Sandy Hook, or Columbine. But its own group of technology advisors quickly panned the idea as a dangerous fantasy. The publicly traded company which sells tasers and police body cameras first floated the idea last year. Rhonda Rockster reporting.
The Navy says one of its fighter jets has crashed in Southern California, killing the pilot. The Navy says that FA-18E Super Hornet was based at Lemoore. Former U.S. Senator Jim Talent says there's a major roadblock to U.S. efforts to stop Chinese incursions in the Indo-Pacific.
The department hasn't really figured out in a concrete way how it's going to defeat China in different contingencies, including a Taiwan contingency.
And former Senator Talent says protecting Guam from Chinese aggression should be a key part of any U.S. plan for the Pacific region. He was interviewed this week by the Salem Radio Network. More from townhall.com.
Are you kidding me? Gas prices are up again? Somebody has to do something.
Well, someone did. That's why I use Upside.
Upside? What's that?
It's a free app that pays you back real money for every gallon of gas or diesel you buy. I just earned 25 cents back on every gallon of this tank.
Hold on. So the Upside app is free and you actually get cash back every time you use it? No strings attached?
Yep, it's awesome. Check it out. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up.
Instead of just watching your dollars go into your tank, start putting money back into your wallet with the free app from Upside. With the price of gas today, it's big news and big money. To cash out of your Upside cash, just transfer it to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card. Upside users have already earned over $200 million. Now it's your turn. Download the free Upside app and start getting cash back on every gallon of gas. Use promo code SALEM for an extra 25 cents per gallon cash back in your first fill-up. That's promo code SALEM. Remember, use promo code SALEM for an extra 25 cents per gallon back in your first fill-up.
Health officials say genetic analysis of recent monkeypox cases suggests there are two distinct strains in the United States.
Federal health officials say many of the U.S. cases were caused by the same strain as recent cases in Europe, but a few samples show a different strain. Each strain had been seen in U.S. cases last year before the recent international outbreak was identified.
As correspondent Norman Hall reporting. A robotic taxi service has been given the green light to operate in San Francisco.
The decision will make Cruise, a company controlled by automaker General Motors, its first fully driverless ride-hailing service in California. There are dozens of companies trying to train vehicles to steer themselves on increasingly congested roads. Waymo, a Google spinoff, has been offering a robotic taxi service in the Phoenix area since October 2020.
As correspondent John Scott reporting breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. The EPA has set 2022 requirements for the amount of ethanol that must be blended into the nation's gasoline supply.
The Environmental Protection Agency has finalized the amount of biofuel that must be blended into the nation's gas supply for 2022. The agency raised the level of renewables required to 20.63 billion gallons. That's an increase of a little over 8% from last year. It includes advanced biofuels and 15 billion gallons of traditional ethanol. The government retroactively lowered the requirements for 2020 and 2021, acknowledging that the COVID-19 pandemic decreased how much ethanol was produced, but also how much gasoline was sold. The American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers Group, reacting to the announcement, says unachievable mandates will increase fuel costs, while the Renewable Fuels Association says the requirement will encourage growth and lower gas prices, noting that ethanol is currently cheaper than gasoline. Jennifer King, Washington.
More on these stories at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Bob Agnew.
We've got so much to say that we need 4 radio stations. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and our newest edition, 95.7 FM.
Matt's giving me the wave. Hey, get back on the air. Quit talking. Get back on the air to talk more.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Oh man, we should really film these, like the breaks.
Really though. How much trouble would you, I, or Rocco be in if we actually
Speak for yourselves, guys.
It would be so much fun. Yeah, Rocco doesn't care though. See, that's the difference.
Oh, see. Oh,
the FCC might not like it, but
no.
Anyways, yeah. Another reminder: the Eric McKenna Project at ericmckenna.com. Rocco and I, our latest episode of How We See It's on there, launching tonight. Check it out. If you want to hear more of the unvarnished Rocco Cozza. There's a lot of unvarnished on there.
Yeah, there is. That's how I communicate.
Okay. I was interrupting you. You were talking about transactions being relationship-based or transactional.
So we were talking about business and how you communicate as an entrepreneur. I said there are really I look at business 2 ways, either transactional or relational, right? So either, like, my business is the relationship business. I don't ever look at a client as a transaction.
Right.
It is, I'm building a relationship with someone. So I have to put care and thoughtfulness and kindness into that relationship, right? So what I say, what I do, how I communicate matters.
Mm-hmm.
To Matt's point, like, okay, if I'm in a transaction, meaning if I'm just going to buy a pizza, if that pizza shop has opposing views from me but has good pizza, I don't care.
Right.
It's a transaction to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I like the pizza, I'm going to buy the pizza. Now, there is a small segment of the population that I truly believe would say, well, I'm not buying that pizza. It could be life-changing pizza, the best pizza they've ever had, but because their viewpoint is diabolically opposed to theirs, they will not buy the pizza. And to me, that's, as an entrepreneur, I think you have to first and foremost understand the type of business you have.
Right.
Is your business relational or transactional?
Right.
If it's relational, then your communication matters in every which way. You know, modality, the way, the things you say. If it's transactional, I don't think it matters as much. I think you still have to communicate appropriately, and you have to know how to communicate. But I think the worry of offending others is less of an issue, in my opinion.
When did we start worrying about that?
I mean, to Matt's point, when cancel culture started.
I mean, I just thought just being a decent person was enough to maneuver and not, I mean, I didn't start any major issues about offending people.
No, and that's
I made it to like 50 years old or 45 years old. Then I started noticing that everything was starting to be examined. Every little move I was making was being examined.
And again, I believe that the cancel culture and the the offensive, those are the fringes of society.
Certainly.
I think the majority of us, like if you're a decent human being and you actually care about people and care about what you're doing, I don't really worry about offending people because I don't believe I'm an offensive person. I don't believe I have viewpoints. My dad's shoes may be a little bit offensive to some. Oh well. So,
on that
I'm
side
embracing
of the board.
having 3 children. So
yes, you are.
But that's what I'm saying. So I think I don't worry about that. Like I communicate the way I communicate. I actually care about what I do.
You do.
I feel very grateful for the clients I have and the firm that we've built and the people that I work with.
And the work you do.
And the work I do. And I love what I do. So I don't think when I communicate, I don't think, will this offend somebody? Because I've gotten to that point where I'm not for everybody. I'm not going to be the right lawyer for everybody. And that's okay. I'm secure enough to be okay with that. Some people need validation, right? Maybe they're younger entrepreneurs. They haven't made it in the business world yet. So they someone not wanting to work with them is a shot at their ego in that they need the validation that, I'm the right person. I don't need that validation.
So let's unpack that a little bit. So there's probably different stressors now when I compare me entering the entrepreneur life in 99 as opposed to what a person mid-20s is going to enter, in that concept of someone not liking me or my product, I think holds greater weight today than it did like when I did it in 99. Like if someone didn't dig my stuff, I kind of just realized, well, it's just not for you. But I never even gave it a passing thought, to be honest with you. But I can see how the mindset has changed, and that might be, via the phone, and it maybe through Instagram and other social media thing, comparing everything. I can see how that might be an internal struggle, like the acceptance of rejection, and then how that rejection is dealt with, and even from a communication standpoint with that client who's rejecting you.
Well, there's so much more. Like anything you do now, it can be recorded and can be shared and can impact your business, right? Like look at Google,
or your life.
Look at Google reviews, right?
Right.
Google reviews can really impact a business's ranking on the biggest search engine. So those people those 20-somethings coming into the business world have been brought up in this technology era, and they understand that, right? Like I didn't really understand the point of Google reviews. We have a ton of great Google reviews. We have one bad review on our law firm. And it was from a guy, apparently, that called into our office and said no one ever called him back. I responded to the review because we have a system that when a call comes in, it gets tracked into our CRM. Name never appeared, no phone number, never. So this could have been just some spam. It could have been a competitor. But instead of having a 5.0 rating, we have a 4.9 rating because we have one bad review.
Right.
That can impact. Now, if we had 2 of those and that drops that down, I don't show up as high in search rankings.
Right.
So that's the whole point. People are thinking, so they have to be more conscious of what they're doing.
Well, the system's not good. Online ratings, because the web is, the web is the Wild West.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Online rating systems, even I used to brag about my eBay rating. So this will sound ridiculous, but that was a big thing in early eBay commerce.
Absolutely.
Your eBay rating.
You hit on the term that I was thinking about in the last hour when talking about this whole, generational thing, which is the Wild West, because that really is what the internet is. And I think
it always was.
Well, it always was, but I think nobody was raised into it. Like, we those who experienced the Wild West as it was in the first hand didn't really get a hold of it, until they were in their adult years, where they had
decorum,
the decorum and sort of the
bingo,
the parameters set already.
Well, we had order in our We had order in our life in society going into the internet, which we kind of initially when the web was young, we brought that order, or tried to,
right?
Even though the web would fight against it because it was the Wild West, but there was a level of order and predictability.
Yes,
that lasted 5-7 years, or probably until my opinion. Until MySpace reared its ugly head, and then that led to Facebook and the rest of it. Social media kind of took that order and blew it out of the water. I'm not saying good or bad, just my observation.
Right, and I think too, with technology being what it is, that people. And I understand that social media has parameters where you can only be so old, until you use the account. But
I know where you're going there.
But I feel like, especially when it comes to that, plus online news and everything else in between, that, if there's not that set level of boundaries, at the start of life, then they're going to, people, the kids are going to be wandering at 12, 13 years old into this wild world of, boundaryless eras where everybody has an opinion, everything's available, everything exists. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it does create that sort of, effect of, well, where do I go?
Does everybody's opinion matter?
I gotta take a step back. I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to figure out where this conversation
Rocco's
is.
actually perplexed.
Well, because we're all over the place.
That's
I'm
what
trying,
we do, man.
I know.
That's
I'm
trying. Did you expect anything less when you took on this venture with me?
I did not. I'm trying to think where to go first. So the question you asked was, does everybody's opinion matter?
Yes.
To them, yeah. To each, your opinion matters to you, correct? My opinion matters to me.
Generally.
No, I don't believe everybody's opinion matters. I think everybody's opinion matters to themselves, and everybody should have the right to have their own opinion.
And nobody should be punished to have their opinion.
Correct. That is correct. That is an accurate statement. However, the opinions that matter to me are the people I'm close with, I care about, I work with, I want to see succeed, and I want to help in my business. Other than that, it doesn't matter to me. You can have your opinion. I don't care. It's not me being rude or insensitive. It is, I have a certain level of mental capacity to deal with people and opinions, and there's a certain level of people and their opinions that I respect and want to deal with and engage with, and other people not. And that's just kind of how I look at it.
Matt?
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That, I think, again, as long as everybody is, not punished. I mean, because I think you could disagree with somebody without punishing them, or agree with somebody without, thinking the world of them. It's just a matter of, hey, these are views we have, and, it's up to us to prioritize, our levels of communication with other people. And, if we're talking to somebody when we feel it's important, we have to prioritize that. Sometimes we may not have to do that, but at the same time, there has to be that barrier of respect when it comes to communicating with other people. I don't know if that answered your question whatsoever, but
I think that because we don't have a level of civility and respect enough, let me say that, we generally don't have enough civility and respect for each other today, that plays into having an inflated opinion of one's own opinion, our own thought, our own viewpoint. It's an inflated opinion of the worth or the weight, the societal. Let's really say it for what it is. We often have an inflated right? Because it's I'm learning this. It took me 55 years, but it's and if it starts with a vowel, right?
Opinion.
Yes, an inflated opinion of the weight of our viewpoints in society, a more societal weight. We believe it weighs more in society. If I say something today, knowing that I have these outlets to go and throw it out there, that wasn't around in 1992. Like if I'm driving down, I don't know, the Parkway, contemplating things in my head in 1992, and I have an opinion on something. I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh and get charged up, man. I was a young conservative back then, really, fiercely. And I listened to Limbaugh do his thing, and I'd hear like an issue, and I get real charged up in my car. I'm like, okay, I feel this way. It wouldn't wreck my day. It wouldn't even be more than a passing thought for a minute or two, because I knew it was just my opinion, and I'm just some guy in a car, right? But things change a little bit when you have outlets that you can kind of somewhat go out and touch other people and reach other people very easily with this opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So now my view of the importance or the societal weight of my opinion is much different today than it was in the 90s.
Right.
And I think I have a frame of reference because of my age. I can remember what I thought my opinion was worth prior internet and what it might be worth today in my head.
Yeah.
Right? If you grew up in an era where you always had those outlets that's all you remember. You've always had outlets to go out there and throw your things around in videos and opinions and viewpoints and all that stuff. You might have an inflated opinion of what your viewpoint actually is because you think it weighs more and impacts others when it really doesn't.
But I disagree. I disagree. Because here's the thing. I think it's okay to have an inflated opinion of your opinion as long as you don't infringe on anybody else's opinion. Like, because what you're saying,
it's okay, but isn't it? What I'm saying, this is symptomatic of some of the problems we have today.
But where do we draw the line of inflated and non-inflated? Right. I have an opinion. Right. I have opinions of certain things that I believe are good opinions.
Yes.
When does it become inflated? What's the trigger that makes my opinion inflated?
So
I think this is an important distinction we need to make. I get where you're going. I get what you're trying to say, but I want to make sure we're articulating it in a way that makes sense.
If somebody is younger, let's say someone's in their late 20s. I'm going to give you a scenario.
Okay.
And they're having what's known, we used to call it a failure to launch.
Okay.
Okay. It's kind of harsh to say that, but they're just having trouble getting anchored at a job, finding a place to live. They're just having trouble starting their life. But they're so immersed in social media and they're so vocal about every little thing and they're throwing it out there thinking it matters, that their opinions, that mindset and throwing that out there could be doing them more harm. If they understood that their actual viewpoints on their frustrations in the world and all this stuff was something they had to deal with internally. And it isn't for public consumption, throwing it out there in the ether. And I think they believe there's some value by throwing that out there in the ether. It's going to solve the problem or make it better or make them feel better. It makes things worse.
Okay, we this went down a different road, so we need to come
Fantastic.
back. We need to come back to this.
The Entrepreneur Life, Rocco, Cozza, Eric McKenna, Matt Derzik. We will be right back.
I know. It's amazing just how much most people don't know about Aliquippa Giant Eagle. Obviously, everybody knows it's a great grocery store and all that, but get this. Did you know Aliquippa Giant Eagle is the #1 place in Beaver County for grilling season? Nobody takes grilling more seriously than Aliquippa Giant Eagle. A full assortment of steaks and chops, along with the best seafood in the Beaver Valley, is available right now. And here's something else you probably didn't know. You can also get that beer and wine to enjoy on the patio while you're grilling at Aliquippa Giant Eagle too. There's no need to stop anywhere else. Who knew? As if all that wasn't amazing enough, did you know that you can order what you want ahead of time for convenient curbside express pickup? Search Aliquippa Giant Eagle, then click the Shop Curbside tab. Remember, if you've got a grill, you need Aliquippa Giant Eagle, located in the Green Garden Plaza.
Falling in love is one thing. Having anxiety about falling is a whole different subject. If you or a family member are concerned about falling, and yes, either up or down the stairs, or maybe even out of bed, St. Barnabas has a special message and some ideas just for you. Years of experience in working with people who are prone to falls has given St. Barnabas special expertise in this area. Call them at 724-443-0700 and learn about ways that you can begin to feel more confident and safe, including suggestions that you can implement right now into your daily routine. Call St. Barnabas at 724-443-0700. For many years now, St. Barnabas has been helping people fall in love, that is, with their new, better life, a longer life, a risk-free life. Call St. Barnabas now at 724-443-0700 or visit stbarnabashealthsystem.com and learn more about living longer and better.
Check out Beaver County's free online source for news, sports scores, and more. BeaverCountyRadio.com.
All right, we're back.
Do you want to say that last sentence for everybody who...
What was the last sentence that I said?
You said, I think you said, thank God I didn't have the internet when I was young.
I think he feels the same way.
Yeah.
Well, social media anyways.
Right.
Okay, good. Rocco wants to make a correction to my viewpoint, which I want to hear.
Correction to your viewpoint. You have a viewpoint. I have a viewpoint.
Yes.
I disagree with it.
Yes, correct.
What I'm saying is, what I heard you say was that these young people can have inflated opinions of their opinions by using these social media platforms and putting it out there and shoving it down people's throats.
If inflated societal weight.
Okay, so one, let's put this inflated societal weight because we don't know how that's determined yet, right? So we're making an assumption.
Here comes the lawyer in him.
Right. Well, this is what I do. My point being, I have kids. I want my kids to believe their opinion matters.
Understood.
And if there's an outlet to share that, absolutely. So long is their opinion does not infringe on anyone else's. Meaning, so long as they don't believe their opinion is more important than someone else's opinion, because they are merely opinions. They are different points of view. I am not going to tell my kids, don't put something out there that you truly believe in because you may offend somebody else.
Agreed.
So long as you are a decent human being and you can engage in a discussion with another individual that has a differing opinion without you thinking your opinion is better or right. It's purely an opinion.
Important
or
than
more important.
Others. And that's kind of where I was going
yes,
with it.
Yes, there should not be a more important than that. It's important to me.
Yeah. And that conviction's where I think it needs to stay.
Yes.
Be rooted in that,
Yes,
for sure.
agreed.
What I'm saying is these outlets have given the illusion that their opinions may have more societal weight than it actually is. And what it ends up doing, quite frankly, is it provides a rebuttal often from someone they probably don't know personally, and that's where caustic behavior can come from.
But unpack that a little bit, because you're using the term that these platforms give it societal weight. Explain how
reach.
Okay,
and it's an illusion, I think, to a lot of folks.
So what I'm just trying to understand. So you're saying that when they put something out there, we'll use Facebook as the example, that because it can reach so many people, they think their opinion has a lot of weight now because it can reach so many people.
They believe that, and then that elevates their opinion above possibly others.
Well, okay, so one, that's an assumption we're making of.
I think it's been seen out, right? That's why it's happening so often.
And I think Eric's just saying it's an assumption that they are making too. That they're
it's definitely an assumption.
Yeah, because
well, actually, a falsehood, to be honest with you, because I don't think it holds much societal weight. I believe.
Well, so again, I think we are in the realm of speculation right now. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I feel like I'm in the courtroom.
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I am saying is we are peering into the mind of a 20-something-year-old that has 1 million followers and assuming that they think we're assuming, because none of us know for a fact.
I'm not talking about those who have huge influence. I'm talking about the average
1,000 followers, we'll say.
Yeah, the average person on
right. So we are still, none of us know for a fact. We are assuming that those people think because I have 1,000 people, my opinion matters more than someone that has 500 people following them. That's kind of what we're saying.
Yes, I think there's not everybody, but I think there's elements of that, which is part of the problem.
Okay, but so how do you stop it?
I don't think you can.
Where do you draw the line? So you have kids, right? Do you want your kids' opinions to matter?
Absolutely.
Do you, if they have 1,000 people that follow them, do you want them to have the ability to share their opinion with those people?
Their conviction, their belief, and I think that you're not hurting anybody.
Define hurt. You're getting lawyered today, man. So define hurt.
Getting lawyered.
Because we're talking in generalities. I want to get really specific.
I'll use the framework of the word kind. I think if you're going to be, mean-spirited, if you're not coming from a plate of, well, this won't apply. I would prefer things to be coming from a position of humility and kindness all the time. It doesn't happen that way.
Okay.
But if they're not being kind,
sure,
that to me, I wouldn't. I mean, I can't stop them, but I wouldn't want them to throw that out into the ether.
But could it be just? Could I just say, like, hey, I just want to let people know I have an opinion on something. This is my opinion, and just state a very strong conviction about something. Is that hurtful?
I think it can be. I think it can be.
I think it can.
I really do.
So let me clarify. This is. I hate that we're at the end of the show because literally I want to drill down on you two for the next 2 hours.
Oh, we're going to do that in the next show.
Now you got me fired up because now because this is important because. So you're saying if I go out on Facebook and say, you know what, everybody, I have an opinion on something, and this is my opinion, and it's a strong conviction about something, you're saying that could be hurtful?
Yes.
How?
I can.
How?
Because it is assuming that everybody else is going to respond. It's sort of to Eric's point.
I'm not making an assumption there.
I understand that, but I think that it goes sort of to the very, and I think it's an objective thing at this point, where if you're putting something on social media where people are going to see it, you are going to communicate as if you have an audience, and it depends on how you interact with that audience. Are you willing to have, and it goes to your point, Rocco, are you willing to discuss with them, or are you just going to put your opinion out there and sort of put it up on a wall and sort of
but define audience. Is one person an audience?
I think one person.
Right. I think one person.
But I'm just trying to
I think
unpack
in the realms of social media, it's sort of out there that you have more than one. it creates this idea that you have more than one. Now, maybe only like 4 people see it, but you have 1,000 followers. So in your mind, you think, okay.
Well, you're assuming it's my mind.
Well, that's
right. You're
that
assuming.
that was that
illusion.
That was the delusion. I said.
Right. What I'm saying is, Rocco Cozza, going to open my Facebook and say, I have an opinion on something. This is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And what you said, Matt, is that can be hurtful. So what I hear is
how it's worded.
Okay, so words can be hurtful. Can words be violent?
Can words be? I think violence is a human action, right? Having a physical action.
Then define hurtful. Define what you mean by
hurtful. Hurtful is emotional.
I'm backing you guys into a corner.
No, hurtful. I know where you're going with this, but I'll play.
Okay.
Hurtful to me. Okay. Hurtful is an emotional construct. Violent, to me, as I define the word, is a physical harm.
I agree.
This is so good.
Yeah, I mean, and you're going on vacation.
We are that's right. So we'll have to pick this up Wednesday. We wouldn't even have to wait a whole week. Maggie's going to miss out on this, buddy.
Man. Oh.
That's okay. You got to call in.
Oh, man.
We'll see.
There'll be a couple of beers down calling in.
Yeah.
Friends.
Here's my real opinion.
You guys hurt my feelings
He'll be
today.
fired on Monday when he comes back. All right, friends. Entrepreneur Life. Rocco Cozza, Eric McKenna. Thank you again. Next Saturday, 10:30 to 12:30.
No, next Saturday, Wednesday.
Oh, excuse me, Wednesday. What was it?
12:30 to 2:30 this Wednesday. We will be on air.
There you go.
Make sure you listen.
We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to The Entrepreneur Life with attorney and author Rocco Cozza, along with realtor and podcaster Eric McKenna. Content and sponsorship have been provided by Rocco Cozza and Eric McKenna. Tune in next Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for another edition of Your Entrepreneur Life.